dessa vez não gastou 30 minutos, só 10. Então, a gente vai dar continuação ao nosso capítulo aqui de ocupações especiais ordinárias. Como eu falei, comparativamente, falando de ontem para hoje, nós vamos gastar mais tempo programando mesmo e conversando, e vamos ter entre hoje até o fim da semana com o objetivo de terminar esses 7 problemas que eu propus. Assim, na medida do possível, fazer todos, se for o caso, se for possível. Se não for, a gente vai fazer o que for possível. Mas a preferência é que a gente sempre conseguisse chegar ao problema número 7. O problema número 7 é o mais interessante, é o que envolve uma solução em paralelo de várias equações especiais ordinárias. Veja que, por exemplo, você vai escrever um artigo científico, é o que você precisa. Às vezes a gente resolve um problema de equação especial ordinária ao mesmo tempo. Né? Então, esse curso aqui é capaz de dar uma ajuda dessa. E se alguém por acaso aqui tiver terminado os 7 problemas, eu tenho mais, tá? Só que escrevi no meu tempo. Para a gente. Deixa eu trazer um pouquinho mais para perto. Para a gente fazer, dar início aí a nossa discussão, também era importante eu poder explicar para vocês a diferença dos 2 esquemas numéricos que a gente vai usar para a solução desses 7 problemas. Um dos esquemas numéricos a gente já usou, já expliquei, já deu pelo menos umas 2 ou 3 olhadas nisso, que é o forward order. Que é chamado forward order por 2 razões. Primeiro, order, foi quem aplicou isso pela primeira vez. E segundo, chamado forward, porque nós estamos computando os resultados do tempo futuro. Então, você está utilizando uma projeção dos resultados do tempo futuro. Então, se a gente tivesse que dar uma representação assim, gráfica, o que é o forward order? O forward order, graficamente, seria uma coisa assim. Então, olha só, eu tenho uma função, vamos colocar aqui, a gente resolveu a função de velocidade, a velocidade determinada. Então, eu tinha uma função de velocidade ao longo do tempo. E essa função de velocidade aqui, eu só sei um valor dela. O valor dela que eu sei aqui é 0. Começa com 0 de velocidade. Mas, eu tenho informações a respeito de como deveria ser a variação dessa velocidade ao longo do tempo. É a equação diferencial ordinária. Isso eu tenho essa informação. Então, o que o forward order propõe? O forward order propõe você pegar, basicamente, construir uma projeção do que vai ser a velocidade futura. Ponto de interrogação, você não sabe. Qual seria a velocidade futura, baseado na primeira derivada da velocidade que você tem para a equação diferencial ordinária. Então, eu faço essa projeção e chego nesse ponto. Então, esse ponto aqui, ele deixa de ser uma incógnita, ele vira o ponto V delta T. A velocidade do delta T. Depois, no próximo delta T, eu vou pôr aqui delta T. No próximo delta T, eu tenho que calcular a velocidade de novo, nesse ponto aqui, e é uma velocidade desconhecida, novamente. Eu aplico essa formulação mais uma vez. Só que essa formulação ela depende da velocidade. A gente sabe que o dVdt, nessa formulação que a gente usou da velocidade terminal, quanto maior o V, menor o dVdt. É só você olhar a equação diferencial ordinária. Então, o crescimento vai ser assim? Não, acaba sendo mais embaixo. Então, a velocidade, a taxa de crescimento da velocidade é menor. E aqui eu tenho a velocidade no tempo 2 ΔT. Então, veja só, o que o Ford Order executa? Ele basicamente mete as caras, conhecendo o que você tem da derivada original, ignorando os outros termos de derivada segunda, terceira, etc. E calcula. E é bom que você ignore, porque você não tem a formulação diferencial das outras derivadas de ordem mais elevada, só tem a primeira. Tudo bem. Qual é a equivalência disso com o... Eu vou fazer uma brincadeira aqui. Qual é a equivalência disso com o Range-Cota quarta ordem? Na verdade, o Range-Cota segunda, terceira, quarta, quinta ordem modelos, esquemas numéricos para solução de equação diferencial ordinária, que a gente chama de preditor-objetor. Tá? Eles não fazem o cálculo de uma diferencial ordinária, ou de qualquer diferencial, numa tacada só, igual o Range-Cota faz. Ele vai fazer isso diretamente. Aliás, quantos anos atrás você estudou um curso de cálculo numérico? Faz toda uma cara assim, cálculo numérico. Tá. Enviaram assim, um diretório aí, né, de materiais de consulta de livros, acho que foi divulgado, né? Tem se for para completar aquilo ali, põe o livro do Press, Numerical Recipes, está na referência também do livro. O Numerical Recipes, ele é o melhor livro de cálculo numérico que na minha opinião, que existe. E ele tem várias versões, ele tem C, ele tem Fortran, ele tem Pascal, o que eu tenho em Pascal, porque eu também comecei a programar trabalho em Pascal. Eu acho que eu vou parar de falar português. 15 minutos falando português, eu nem corrigi aqui, né? Alright. So the numerical recipes by Press 1989 is, in my opinion, the best numerical methods book out there. It's a book that I think we should have this in our references. And it explains pretty well how predictor corrector schemes operate. So let me try to explain how Range-Cota would work. Range-Cota fourth order would work. Let me make this here delta V. So the Range-Cota method operates the following way. Range-Cota wants the following. So I have V for the velocity, and I need to find a correction for that velocity. So then I'll have the velocity in the new time step. So this is what Range-Cota wants, basically. What is the delta V that I have to introduce so I can have the new velocity for the next time step? Basically, he's interested in this guy here, the dV here on the top. But what he does is this. So it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to explain this graphically. All right. So I have this delta T here, and I have the initial velocity here, 0. And Range-Cota fourth order knows, oh yeah, so this would be the new velocity, hence this is the delta V, right? For the new velocity. But then, no, I'm not sure. I don't think this is good. What if I had this delta V here plugged into here? What would have been the slope? So basically, try to guess the following. Oh yeah, if I put this delta V here, maybe the slope is like this. So I'm playing. I don't know what the delta V is going to be, but he's guessing. If this delta V is equal to the forward order delta V, then I know that I'm going to have a new velocity. I'm going to try the new velocity back there and recalculate what would be dV. So the first dV here would be, say, a dV1. And then he plugs this new dV here that is based on the dV1 plugged back in here and calculates dV2. And he looks at this dV2, yes, see, it's smaller. What if I had used this dV2 instead of dV1 back there? And he plugs this dV2 back into here, and he calculates maybe another correction that he calls a dV3. And then he does this again with the dV3, and plugs once more, and then finally settles down maybe with a last correction, dV4. So in a sense, what he's doing is that he is probing. Well, what if I try that, what would have been the slope? And then we calculate, right, now that I have this slope and I have the velocity, what if I had that velocity to compute the derivative? And you have a new velocity then, because if he keeps doing this 4 times, and because of that, he has 4 estimates of what would be that delta in the velocity that you have between one times that and the other. Not one estimate, but 4. And in the end, he has a weight average procedure. He says, basically, the approach states that I'm going to make a 1/6 dV1, 2 dV2, 2 dV3 plus dV4. So I have 6 corrections here, 6 terms for dV, but they are not equally important, divided by 6. And this is the one dV he applies to compute the mass velocity. So it's what we call a predictor corrector. It's predicting what would have been my correction if I had this velocity, if I had this velocity, if I had do this several times, and then he makes a decision based on all of those results. This is how we're moving forward and operates. Now, how is this actually implemented in one equation? So you gotta go to towards several pages. Okay. So look at here. I'm looking at page 26. Page 26 illustrates how the Ronchi-Kuta method was implemented for the terminal velocity method. Now, just let's start with that. If I divide this equation here by delta t, then I have dV dt here, and this goes away. This is the actual differential equation we're looking at. When I multiply delta t on this side, that becomes the correction, dV1. Okay? Which is the same correction, this is the same solution as forward order. If you want to represent the forward order, that would be how we would make the correction. But this is not again, this is not a direct method, this is a predictor corrector method. So you start with the DB1 and see what he does. He see the velocity term here is a square. He's not using the velocity only, he's using the velocity plus DB1 squared. Because that's the term here that is on the differential. So this term here is on the differential here, and then you have this term here squared. Okay? That DB1 here is then used to compute the DB2. The DB2 here, the term, is used to compute a DB3. And a DB3, but notice the DB3 here is divided by 2, you use to compute the DB4. So this is the sequence at which you are developing the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then when you add, and I am not proving this, there is a mathematical proof behind that, why this works. I'm just showing you one simple example. There's a mathematical proof behind this. When I sum up here at the bottom, then the next velocity is going to be the previous velocity here is dv. V plus delta v is going to be equal to ve plus 1/6 of all those terms. Okay? We are going to use this several times. If each one of the codes we're going to write, they're going to have something like this. But one thing, before we get there, a question that may arise is, what do I do when I'm solving multiple differential equations at the same time? How are we going to introduce running Kuta there? So let me just give one example. It's not right there, but maybe one example to illustrate. So I'm going to assume I have two differential equations here. I have the differential equation df dt. It's going to be equal to some expression that depends on f. But I'm also solving a differential equation of dg dt that has its own terms. And then running Kuta, we need to calculate the df, that formula there, and dg, that formula over there. However, it's pretty common sometimes that such equation like this has function of both g and f. And g here has function of itself and f. So, for instance, let me put something like this. Be, say, f squared minus 2 times g, that's 1. And the other here would be g cubed minus 2 times f squared. Let's suppose that this will be differential equation we're solving. So if I'm going to build a running Kuta out of this that has multiple equations, then, for instance, what would be the df1? df1 would be f0 squared minus 2 f0 squared minus 2g0. 0 means, okay, that's the first time step, not the future one, the 0 time step. What would be df2? What do you think? Based on what we have there. F0 plus df1 squared going to be 2 times G0 plus BG1. So you see, you have to compute the corrections, BF1, BG1, BH1, however many questions you have, all of them first, so then you can compute the second level, all of them, then you can correct. Okay, so BG2, and of course everything here should be multiplied by BP, right? Right. BP. Same here. Everything here will be multiplied by BP. And here I have BP multiplying what? G0 plus BG1 cubed, right? Minus 2 F0 plus BF1. Again, this 0 here and 1 here, this 0 here means a previous time step. Just watch the count this. And so on. We have to do this with 2, 4, then calculate the corrections, the weighted average, and then you can compute what's going to be the F for the next time step, the F1. So computation, there will be examples here that we have multiple linear differential relationships. So the parallel solution of those in parallel with for order is much simpler. If you have running code, it gets much more complicated. And there are 2 things about running code that some other researchers do. For instance, there is also a very popular method called running code 5th order. Okay, supposed to be more accurate than the 4th order. And there's also an adaptive time step running code, so that you can adjust the time step of the solution. I'm using always adaptive here because that's the same. What if you're detecting that your error is so small that you can actually make your delta T larger, and then you can finish your computation soon, instead of just going to constant delta T. So those methods are all explained in practice. If you want to go there and discuss, do so. But right now we're just working with those 2 relatively simple methods, which is 4th order and the relatively 4th order. Okay, so here we have one example, right? Complete example, how we set up those equations for the problem of terminal velocity. And now we're going to look at the mathematical models of the equations we are going to solve. And at this point, everybody's going to be working here independently. And I am going to be available. Just raise your hand with questions, and I'll come around and see if I can help. But before that, let me just sit down here and scroll down and show you the other mathematical models we're going to be working. Okay. Again, there is a typo error here. This is problem number 1, 1st order concentration decay. So this is so simple. This is much simpler than the terminal velocity. This is a solution. We have even the analytical solution in this material. So I'm not going to spend time here. This is the second mathematical. This is the second mathematical problem. We have Newton's law of cooling. Okay, so when you have a body immersed in a temperature, environmental temperature E, but the body itself has a different temperature. So basically, how is going to be the temperature varying over time? So it follows this ordinary differential equation. We have a kappa coefficient here that depends on the characteristics of the material. The ODE itself is simple enough that we have an analytical solution of this form, okay? And 0 here means the initial temperature. And there's not much here to say, except that we need to find a solution using Ford-Euler Rodney-Kutta. And this happens to be one of the cases that we can compare against the analytical result and get a quantitative estimate of the error. All right. The first two examples, we are handling only constants, right? Example number 3, you have a combination of algebraic solution and ordinary differential equation solutions. So everybody here, assuming everybody had an open channel course at some point, and we need to calculate backwater profiles, you know, when you have a drawdown profile before a waterfall, or you have a dam creating a backwater profile behind that. So we call this, in general, we call it gradually variable flow profiles, GVF. Well, the GVF equation is pretty known. It is the difference between bed slope and friction slope, and 1 minus the fluid number. You have here oh gosh, that's a type of, please correct me on what it is. This is dx. That's space, not time. Yes. So that's the variation of the depth over space, not over time. So the variation of the depth over space, it obeys this relationship. Well, the bed slope is constant, but the friction slope isn't, nor is the fluid number. So fluid number varies over space. Friction slope varies over space. Because of that variation, there is no analytical solution for this problem. Right? If you make them constant, then it would be possible to provide an analytical solution. But if it is constant, then this would be really a realistic problem. So when we're solving, we need to update variables like that. Okay, you may or may not, if you want to create a vector for this. Like we have, for instance, for the terminal velocity, we have a vector for the velocity. So I know what the velocity values is at each time. In here, I certainly will need a vector for the depth y that gives me the velocity at, sorry, the depth at every point in space. You may want to consider create a vector for v, for the velocity. You may want to create a vector for the flow rate q. You may want to create a vector for fluid number for friction slope. So this is all up to you, okay? But the thing is, you're going to have to solve for this so that you can actually solve for that. But that's an interesting point. Even though I'm having functions here and storing variables here for vectors, if I'm building a running with the fourth order, like I was doing right here, remember that, say, the fluid number or the friction slope are not differential equations. They're just algebraic equations. So they don't have like the F1, the F2 types of corrections on running with them. They're just the actual values that they have. But they vary point by point over the solution. So the only thing that your code you may want to ensure is that you're not dividing things by 0. Right? Because it may occur that you have a fluid number equal to 1. If you're going through a hydraulic jump, right, then the fluid number equals 1, and then your calculation will blow up. You probably want to ensure that your calculation here is not going to blow up by testing if this number here equals 1 before you actually make the calculation. Just be mindful of that when you're writing the code. Okay, let's look at problem number 4. Oh, okay. This is I wrote I'm working with the assumption. Maybe you want to use this assumption too. Approach this channel as if it was rectangular in cross section. So a rectangular cross section channel, the friction slope calculation is a little easier than say trapezoidal or irregular. That will speed up your calculation. So you probably want to read from the user what's the width of your channel when you're computing this. Okay, now we have an interesting problem. A stormwater detention basin hydrograph calculation. Okay, so we have an inflow hydrograph in this problem that looks like this. So the detention basin has 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. That's it. Inflow. In 30 minutes, it will reach about 3.15 cubic meters per second. And then drops to 0 inflow linearly over 90 minutes. That's what I intended with this hydrograph. Okay? So the inflow is going to a detention basin. The detention basin has a discharge orifice with a port 70 centimeters by 70 centimeters at the bottom. Okay? And with a discharge coefficient of 0.65, and actually this should have been a square root here, so this is CDA square root of 2DH. So this Arvix equation for the discharge. And obviously H, which is the depth of the basin, will vary over time. Okay? The basin itself, so the basin itself, if I'm looking at the cross section of the basin itself has a bottom area called A bottom, but with the depth H, the area of the basin increases. And increases according to that equation, so there's a coefficient C1 here, an exponent C2 here, so it's generic. We can make this basin increase in any size. So the area of the basin in terms of H is going to be area at the bottom, C1, H raised to the power of C2, which is what swimming does. Swim 5 does that. It's one way you can set up error variation in swim. All right. Now, I have an outflow that's governed by an orifice equation. I have an inflow that's governed through this curve. And then I'm asking you to compute, to solve the continuity equation with the objective of determining how high will be the water depth of the basin for a choice that the user has of the parameters. So if the user chooses a given value for AD and for the coefficient C1 and C2, if it chooses, so I'm not changing the inflow. The inflow peak here is 3.15, so this is it. But what would be the size of the basin as far as depth goes, depending on the choice? Because what I'm going to compute here is the depth. How depth will change. I'm not considering that the basin may overflow. But you understand what I'm doing here. Just computing how high would the water depth grow for a certain set of conditions. This is exactly what stream does. That's exactly the routine that stream does. So we're going to repeat this routine in VBA. Here, that's the. This is the ordinary differential equation for continuity that we're going to solve. Okay, and I'm going to say has no analytical solution. So those cases that we don't have an analytical solution, one thing we can do is to compare the difference between the running button and the difference between forward order. Compare the error between them, with the assumption that running button is more accurate. Problem number 5 also requires a solution of set of equations. Problem number 5, what we have here, those of you who haven't seen this before, it comes from transient analysis and closed conduits. This is what we call a long inertia equation. So when you don't have a water hammer, you have a gradual change in the pipeline. This is how you compute the change in the flow rate of the pipeline over time, and depends on the pressure gradient, upstream and downstream, on the pipeline, on the length, on the cross-sectional area, friction factor, local loss coefficients, and you see here that this is a non-linear ordinary differential equation. Okay? Now, this here is that you have to compute Reynolds, to compute the friction factor, and then you can put this in this equation. So, what happens when you change dV, or in this case, dQ1? If I have a change in dQ1, I have a change in the velocity, right? If I have a change in the velocity, I have a change in Reynolds and friction factor. And then I can put it here. Because the F here will change slightly. I may neglect that or not, but technically it does change. And you have to be ready that in some cases you may have laminar flows. So if you have laminar flows, that's how you compute the friction factor. In this experiment, we're going to use from the Engenharia equation. Okay, that's number 5. Problem number 6 is simple. That's a simple equation by comparison. It's a Streeter-Phelps equation that if you have had a course in Introduction to Environmental Engineering, you probably saw that equation. So you have a discharge of organic, contaminant organic matter in a river, and this will have a consumption of the dissolved oxygen in the river. When it does so, the reaeration process starts, but it doesn't take instantaneously. So this is the expression here that describes the variation of the oxygen deficit over time, and depends on the original deficit, the reaeration coefficient, the deoxygenation coefficient. So these is, well, given that K1 and K2 are constants, LA are constants, you can actually derive an analytical solution for Streeter-Phelps. So we're going to make the calculations for Ramikota, first order, and then compare these solutions with the analytical solution for Streeter-Phelps. Okay? And the final problem that we have is a little monster, because we have to solve 4 ordinary differential equations in parallel. So you've seen this equation before. This is a long inertia equation, but it's been adapted. So what is the problem that I'm presenting here to you? is this problem. In 1976, Professor Martin, he passed away less than a year ago, but he proposed a problem that would be extremely important for folks like me that research in air and water flows. So you have a situation, I have a reservoir filled with water, and the valve is closed. And I have a pipeline here that has water up to this point, and this end here, we have air. But this valve here creates a separation between this pressure and this pressure. The air initially is atmospheric. Here, pressure is hydrostatic. So the maximum pressure here is pressure atmospheric too. But here at the tank, the water level is higher, the pressure is higher. The moment when I open this simultaneously, that column of water will advance according to this equation against the air. But air is very light. Air has atmospheric pressure, and air will give way for the water. And air volume changes over time with the flow rate of the water advancing. However, air is highly compressible. You start pressing air, the pressure goes up very quickly. So I am using here this expression to calculate how much change in pressure head of air I'm going to experience. Notice here I have H air for air pressure, and here I have H air star. Star means absolute pressure, so it's the pressure head plus atmospheric pressure, 10.3. And if it's not star, it's just the actual pressure. So you actually update the absolute pressure head, and when it comes here, you subtract the atmospheric pressure. And you can see that as this column is advancing, right, the length of the column, this length here, also increases. The column is advancing, the length is increasing. So this number here, L, changes over time. Okay, H air changes over time. Q changes over time. Correct? And can we imagine having the update Q with 3 other variables interwoven in the non-equilibrium solution? Because see, in the non-equilibrium solution, these guys here will be at some point L plus DL1, DL2. This here also L, DL1, DL2. H air will be H air, DH air 1, DH air 2, and so forth. Q will be Q plus DQ1, DQ2, and so forth. So can you imagine how complicated this is going to look like? And how easy it is to make a mistake? Very easy. So you're updating this equation. This one here depends on H air, but also depends on Q. So I have two variables here depending on each other. This one just depends on Q, this one just depends. So create something like that would be a good test. And then you think, okay, how is this actually happening in the real world? The same set of equations that I'm presenting here are also valid if you have a hydrodynamic tank. You want to know what this is in a water main. So you have a water main, and say that you have a pump, and the pump is running, and there's power outage, the pump stops. First thing that the designer do is to protect the pump station. So as the water column is pressurized, it wants to come back and heat the pumps, you put a check valve, and the check valve slams shut and prevents the water from coming the pump station because the pump station stopped. When those valves close and slam shut, the pressure inside the line can be so large that it can actually burst the steel pipeline. So how do you prevent the steel pipeline from being destroyed by the sudden increase in pressure? You have to put some mechanism to alleviate this pressure rise. And the alleviation of the pressure rise can be offered by a device like this, like compressed air. So water wants to increase its pressure, needs space to occupy the space that the air has. So when you design this correctly, you can actually protect your line and your pump station against destruction. Okay, so it's an application. It looks like an application that's theoretical, or yeah, it is theoretical for some purposes, but the same set of equations that we're solving here can be used to solve the adapted to solve how would be the behavior of a hydrokinetic tank if you ever have to design it. So this is the set of equations that we need to do, we need to solve. Okay. Be mindful here that K that shows up in this equation here is not local loss. It was the local loss in this equation here. In this context, K is the polytropic coefficient for the ideal gas law. This is the ideal gas law, by the way. Ideal gas law, momentum equation. This is a continuity equation. This is a kinematic condition. So those four ordinary differential equations that we solve side by side to run included. And we have a lot of hours ahead of us. So let's get started. For those of you who want to follow me, I will do the following thing. I'm going to, because I tried to, last time, to have the camera, not the camera, have the presentation here, to share the Excel screen, but it wasn't working. So if someone is trying to watch us from away and try to record, we will not be able to do so. I'm going to move this camera here behind my screen, and I'm going to open Excel. And I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do, and if you want to follow me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to adapt the terminal velocity code to the running with the force code. So it will be, if you haven't done the running with it before, you want to see this done at least when working for one case. Let's do this together. Then each one of you can start working with a different problem. If you want to work with a different problem, you can start with problem 1 and go to 7, whichever way you want to go. I'm not specifying this to you, but I am going to be working myself on my own solutions for those problems here. But at the same time, I'm going to be available for questions. So I'm going to be sitting here, and if you have questions, just raise your hand, and I'll come around and see how can I help. Okay? But if you want to do this, the running code with the terminal velocity with me, just let's do it together. I'm just going to look at the camera. You may want to open Excel, open the file that we were working on yesterday, so we can get started. Okay? This time, I promise we're not going to go to 11 p.m. So at 10, 15 maximum, we're going to wrap up and continue on Thursday and Friday to finish this project. Just give me a second. Alright, so folks, let's try to put this together here. I'm going to open my code. So remember, when you open your Excel file that has a macro in it, it will give you this warning. Yes, security warning, some active content has been disabled. And you have to here enable content, because this is essentially what you wrote last time. So this is the file, right, that we created. I have already opened one column here, which is going to be where I'm going to write velocity Runge-Kutta. Velocity Runge-Kutta fourth. RK4 here stands for Runge-Kutta fourth order. And I'm going to here put two columns for error. One will be the error for Ford-Euler, FE, and the other column will be the error for Runge-Kutta fourth order. So I need to add the calculations, but also I need to change the output. How the output with the columns that I'm outputting the data is going to be different now. Okay? So I'm starting column number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are all those columns that will be updating results. So I go here to developer, and when I'm looking at the developer, I have to turn on the design mode. So click on design mode. Now I can click on the button, and it's not going to run the code, it's just select the button. I'm going to right click, and here, view code. And now I'm back to the code that I was writing last time. Okay? No questions so far, right? You guys remember how we did this. Okay, so now you've noticed here that I have already created a vector for rank equal to fourth order. I just didn't do anything with that because there was no time. But the results here are ready to be calculated. I just need to, and I have even created those variables, dv1, dv2, dv3, and dv4, that I know I'm going to be using this for rank equal to, right? So it's all ready. All I need to do is just to change the time marching procedure. So in the time marching procedure, you see I have here the comments for analytical solution for Ford-Euler. Okay? Now it's time for me to make the comments, open some space here and write the solution for rank equal to. So I'm going to open here, open some space, and I'm going to copy, actually, I'm going to copy that. You can mark that Control-C and then Control-V. And I'm going to make the comment that this would be Ford-Euler, rank equal to fourth order velocity calculation. Okay, but see, I'm not computing VRK like that. Remember that this is done in a step-by-step fashion. So I need to compute the delta, the dv1 first. So what is my dv1? This is dv1. If you look at the dv1 that we have in the equation, that's the dv1. Okay? But there obviously one thing here that is not correct, because my dv1 here, I'm using VFE. It shouldn't be VFE, it should be VRK, 4, raised to the power of 2. So that's dv1. Remember, it's not VFE, not Ford-Euler, VRK4. So that's the dv1. I'm going to mark that, and I'm copying this again to calculate dv2. But dv2 is different, right? How dv2 is different? I'm showing you now. I'm going to open this parenthesis, is VRK4 plus dv1, close the parenthesis, and this is the term that goes squared. Okay? So this is dv2. dv2 uses dv1 in the computation. And for those of you watching me making a Control-C, Control-V again, a cautionary word. It's so easy to make a mistake, a severe mistake, because especially when you have very complex formulas, that you have several terms that needs correction, dv's, df's, dg's, and things like that, and one of them is not corrected, then the calculation falls through like a domino. So be careful. Here, for instance, you can make dv3 here, but don't change this number here to dv2. That would derail your calculation. And the last is dv4. But dv4 is different, right? Why? Because it's not dv3 here, it's half dv3 that he uses, 0.5 times dv3.
dV1, dV2, dV3, dV4. So remember the problem that I presented to you, that I have 4 ordinary differential equations? You'd have 16 lines to calculate there, and each one of those lines would have several corrections at the same time. Careful, read this carefully not to make mistakes when you're setting up all those equations in parallel. And when I've done that, then I can compute V, RK, II, RK4, II as equal to VRK4 II minus 1 plus 1 over 6, and I'm putting this in a parenthesis, so not to make any mistake, that's 1 over 6 times dV1 plus 2 dV2, 2 times dV2, plus 2 times dV3 plus dV4. So that would be the way we would compute the update using dV1, dV2, dV3, and dV4 in the calculation. Okay, now that we have computed RK4, new velocities for RK4, it's time for us to present the results. And the way I've done this now, cell number 9 is actually where I have the error. The column number 9 is where I have the errors between analytical and Ford-Euler. So the cells 2, 7 will be Ford-Euler, and cells 2II plus 8 will be Runge-Kutta results, RK4 results. And the 10th column, column J, is essentially the same as column number 9, but the difference is that column number 10, I will have a comparison between analytical and RK4, not analytical and VFE. Everybody good there? All right. So, if everything is correct, we're going to save it. I'm going to go back to my file here. I am going to add a new series. So basically, I'm going to increase for RK4. So I added a new series. I'm going to shut down the design mode and run calculation. And my calculations were successful. I just want you to take a look at the difference, the result that we have from Ford-Euler and the results that we had with RK4. The quality of the results. What do you think? I'm even going to change here the scale. Just look at Ford Euler, and you're going to notice that Ford Euler is unstable. It's oscillating, unstable. Look at the result for non-equilibrium. It's not unstable. It's following the shape it should have. It converges with the analytical solution sooner than the Ford Euler does. And if you look at the error, you can plot the error and compare. The errors is just a small fraction. So then I ask you the question, is the quality of the results around the equator better? Are the results more accurate? Yes. It's designed to be more accurate. But is run equator free of issues associated with instabilities? No. It will crash exactly the other one crashed. So let's do the test. Right now I have a time step of 4, right? Try a time step of 6. Bad, right? Yes, pretty bad. And even when you delete the old results, the Rangi-Kut is really pretty bad. If I try time step even larger, Rangi-Kut is going to blow up your code. But if I go with a smaller time step, each one of those methods will behave well. So you see, let me put this in another way of saying this is, okay, sometimes it may be worthwhile to invest more time and make a more sophisticated code and calculate less frequently than to make a simple code that you have to make a time step every second for updates. So that's the difference between accuracy. This is not only for ordinary differential equations. Partial differential equations is the same thing. So there is a cost benefit associated with the process of writing these codes. So should I go with the simpler, but then I have to compute very frequently, or if I do it more sophisticated, I can make the calculation more sparse. Say with 3 seconds here, just another example, you begin to have the issues with Ford Euler that you don't have with Rangi-Kut. So, with that, you have a working model. I mean, anyone here has not been able to do that? Have not worked, hasn't made it work? So everybody here have. My recommendation, start from scratch, do problem number 1, without me walking. Just because it's a simpler equation, do problem number 1 and problem number 2. See if you can do problem number 1 today. If you can finish 1, start at 2 and finish 2 today. And then we have tomorrow, Thursday, you can come here and start already working on this. For problem number 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, if you need, where we can make those problems too. But you need to practice now, right? So let's get to work.
The code is associated with the auditor. Yeah, I mean, it's on those. We don't even start code. Just for you to know, okay here. If you use a larger time step, it's only because we need to. Oh, yeah, because the analysis, so you're divided by the analysis, but the analysis gets smaller. Maybe by not making it relative error, don't divide by the because yeah, if the divide is like 0. Everything okay? Oh, this is the big deal, right? Yeah, so let me tell you all. So if you're working on the decay, you're see that the errors are getting worse over time. It's just because you're looking at the relative error. The analytical solution is brought to 0 over time. So that's why the error increases. Maybe for the case of the decay, you look at the absolute error. You get one minus the other, not one minus the other divided by the analytical. That would probably make sense since you're dividing things that will go to 0. Oh, there's something else maybe I want to show you that could be useful, how you read the previous results. Right? Because if you're going to make a calculation, then you have the old results. So what we can do here is just delete the entire column ahead of us. So to get things ready for new, and go here to design mode again, calculation, show code, view code. So here is where we are setting up everything to 0. So we can select a range. Let me open. I have this done in a different Excel file. Let me open the other Excel file. Then I remember the syntax. Here, that's the command that we need to do. So, for instance, if you want to format numbers, in this case, okay, I want to format the error in percentage. That would be, you select a range,
then you put number format, and then you write the number format. In this case, for instance, 0.0%, I'll have a number, dot decimal, another decimal, and a percentage associated with that. But what we want to do here is the deletion of the results. So here, I have a cell range, and I have a very large number here, and I just clear. So what I would do here in this case is that I'm going to select a range from cell row number 3, column 5, to cell number 3, 50,000 something, and column number 12. I will just clear, and everything there will be cleared out before you write new results. So if I change the time step, the range is also changed, the time step. So the command that we need to do is that select the range from initial cell to final cell and clear.
Pode encontrar alguns diferentes e pintar certos de acordo com o prêmio. Agora, os Na verdade, isso aqui.
Folks, I don't know if you have noticed that, but I just want to put you aware that the decay coefficients are usually 1 over day in terms of units, not second. So a lot of the terms I have here with time are actually divided by 86,400. That's how many seconds you have in a day. Because your time step is probably, you ask, okay, I want to simulate for that many seconds, the time step has that many seconds, but all the reaction coefficients are actually the unit, time units are day. So this is a correction. You see a bunch of 86,400 there just to make a correction. Whenever you have alpha there, you have to look into this, consider this in your corrections.
The retake efficient using positive values for the equations there. Should start at zero. Zero will be the future. So that's the is that? Okay, so what's it? So you will get this one. So that's stack this one. It's dropping much faster because of that. I should know that like this. So this third day, I think this Folks, let me tell you this. It's 10:15. Today we can't go to 11 p.m. again, like we did yesterday. So I'm going to put this way. We are all welcome to stay and work, continue to work, but we have to stop the recording. We have to stop officially. We have to stop the action. We don't want to stop it. We don't want to do it.